So I assume that you have people who you look up to, who you admire, who you respect. Kind of like role models who you aspire to be like. Role models who have achieved the successes that you want to achieve, who have gotten the things that you desire, who have accomplished certain things that you might find inspiring. What if, just imagine this scenario where you could spend an entire day with them. You could ask them any single question and they would be able to answer it. Do you think that you would make more progress to your goals? Do you think that you would get further, that you would gain more knowledge, more leverage, more skin in the game? I would think so, yes. Why? Because they have the experience, they have the knowledge, they have technical knowledge. What I think is experience, technical knowledge. They know what to do, they know how to carry it out. If you could ask any of these role models of yours on how they got to where they are now, I think it would make more progress to your goals. But there's actually a way that you can ask them or get knowledge from them without having to pay thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars to meet them in person. And you do that by reading books. Now, reading books and reading in general is probably the most valuable skill that they teach you in school. You learn math, but some jobs don't need math. You learn how to, do chemistry or physics, but you're probably not going to use that in your life. But reading is probably the most valuable skill that you've been ever taught. And the reason is because by reading books, you can translate 10 years of hard work, effort, and sacrifice and digest it into and digest all of that in 6 hours. Because someone may have studied the subject for their entire life. They spend all of their time studying it, all of their time perfecting it, tweaking it to make it the most applicable to anyone. And then they wrote a 300-page book about it, and you can finish it within 6 hours. And then you can hardwire that knowledge into your brain. And reading is kind of like learning, but it's not the best type of learning. The best type of learning is actually taking action. Because you can read the books on how to do marketing, you can read the books on how to become productive, you can read the books on how to set goals, you can read books on how to make better habits. If you don't do it, if you don't get your skin in the game, if you don't actually experience what it's like, how difficult it is, the struggles that you have to go through on a day-to-day basis, you will not learn as efficiently as you would be, as you could be. So instead of learning about how to make a product, just make a product. Or instead of learning how to study, just try to use your imagination to study more effectively. Try different techniques and you will see which one works best for you. Or if you want to create a course, for example, you could start by creating a course and gaining experience along the way. And yeah, you may have to record it 2 or 3 times, but who cares? Because that's how you improve. And you improve more that way than by reading books on how to speak better. Because by reading books on how to speak better, how to be charismatic, you won't become a better speaker and you won't become more charismatic. The way that you become a better speaker, the way that you build better habits, the way that you become more charismatic, any of these things you learn by actually doing them. By going out into real life and experimenting with what works and what doesn't. Now, learning is a lifelong experience. You're always learning. Or at least you should be, and it should be a lifelong experience. You should become a lifelong student. But the school system, the education system, the learning system has really fucked with our minds with this. Because most of us, and I used to believe this, that studying, I used to have the mindset that studying was bad, that learning was bad because it was uncomfortable, and I associated negative feelings with studying. And I would have the mindset that once school ended, once I no longer had to go to school, then I wouldn't have to learn anymore. That I wouldn't have to read books. That I could just experience life. But now I realize that that's not how it works. Because the school system conditioned you, well, not purposely, but if you are in the school system, I think that you have been conditioned to not really like learning. Because, to be honest, it's uncomfortable. It's hard work. You need to stay up on late nights and study subjects that you don't give a shit about. Like, who cares about physics or something? Maybe, yeah, if you want to become a physician, but like, you probably don't. And I want to drill this into your head and mine also, that learning is a lifelong process. You don't stop. It's an infinite game. There isn't an end point. You keep learning and you keep improving. And then you learn again, and then you improve again. And it's a cycle that should be repeated on a continuous basis. And if you don't learn, that means if you don't read, because like reading is probably next, like taking action, but like becoming more knowledgeable, more aware, more wise. It mostly comes down to reading. And if you don't read, you're never going to become successful. You're never going to beat people who have more knowledge than you do. Because knowledge is leverage. And the ones who have leverage and the ones who don't makes the difference between people who are successful and people who are not. People who are 100 times more successful than you and me, they aren't necessarily working 100 times more efficiently or harder than we do. They just have more leverage. They get more for their inputs. They get more results for the same amount of work. And knowledge is the starting point of all leverage to come. And like, I'm trying my best here to drill this into your head that if you don't read books, if you like, I'm mostly making this video because I know that one of my close friends will watch it, and he doesn't read very often. And I want to like drill this into your head that if you don't read, you're not going to become the person who you want to be. And the reason that is because someone else is going to be more knowledgeable than you. Someone else is going to have more wisdom, more knowledge, more skin in the game than you do. They will know more stuff. And if they know more stuff, even if you work twice as hard as them, if they know more of what to do, when to do, how to do, they will still outcompete you. And life is a race. It's a competition between everybody. And if you want to get the quote-unquote good results, the success, the achievement, the accomplishments, you must have leverage. And there are many types of leverage: capital, labor, productivity. But it all starts with knowledge. So here's an actionable step. After you're done watching this video, pick up a book and read. It doesn't matter if it's fiction, it doesn't matter if it's non-fiction. Just start reading, bro. Like, I would recommend non-fiction because I think that's where you can learn the most practical and most profound advice. But reading anything is better than not reading nothing. Pick up The Lord of the Rings by Tolkien, the Harry Potter. Just start reading, because if you don't, someone will, and that someone will outperform you every single time. There is a quote that I really love, which is learn to love to read. Learn to love to read. If you don't love to read, if you don't like to read, then learn to love to read. Because if it's something that you despise, it's going to be a very difficult journey. If you don't love reading, if you don't like reading, if you don't enjoy reading, you're going to have to force yourself. And when you force yourself, you don't learn as much. You don't learn better. You're not as engaged or as curious as you would be if you would love it. So learn to love to read, and you do that, You learn to love to read by reading what you love until you love to read. Maybe you like nonfiction, maybe you like fiction, maybe you like, I don't know, romance or fantasy or skiffy, sci-fi, whatever it's called. Read what you love until you love to read. Because I had a friend that said that I don't like to read, and like I don't read anything because there's no book that I would enjoy. And I didn't say it to him because I sometimes replay this conversation in my mind. And what I should have said to him was that saying that I don't like to read is literally the same as saying that I don't like to eat. Well, if you want to survive, you have to eat, you have to drink water. And the same way, if you don't want to end up like a fucking loser with their brain cells going out of their ears. And don't imagine that, please. You have to read. You have to become more knowledgeable. Because if you don't, you will become a fucking loser who no one respects, who no one admires, who has a shitty job, a shitty life. And saying I don't like to read anything, like there's no book that would work for me, is literally the same as saying that there's no food that I enjoy. Like there has to be. There is for everybody some food they enjoy. Maybe it's not fries or burgers like some people. Maybe you like, I don't know, salads or something. Like you're one of those weird guys. No offense. But there has to be something that you enjoy. And the same with reading. So the two things. Read what you love until you love to read, and learn to love to read.